Think you've got a sixth sense for the supernatural? Let's see. Can exorcisms really save you from demons?
All I know is that I was there and that I saw it.
Can ghosts be caught on camera?
When you look in that picture, it will just raise the hair on the back of your neck.
Could an evil spirit physically harm you? Can some people talk to spirits? And do zombies really walk the earth?
When he came into the hospital, he actually stated that he was a zombie.
In the next 30 minutes, you'll find out everything you need to know.
Why can't sharks stop moving? Will we ever transplant a human brain? What makes us hot or cold-blooded? Everything you need to know.
The story of a 12-year-old girl possessed by demons first hit screens in 1973. The Exorcist was so horrifying it caused some moviegoers to vomit and faint. It's still one of the all-time scariest movies. But did you know that The Exorcist was inspired by an actual possession? The case didn't involve a 12-year-old girl, but a 13-year-old boy. Official reports only referred to him using the letter R. R's strange behavior first began in 1949, after his aunt died. R started to hear scratching in the walls. Objects flew around the house. Chairs and beds moved by themselves while the boy was in them. That was when his parents decided to call on the Catholic Church. But the first exorcism attempt ended in disaster. R slashed the priest from elbow to wrist with a bed spring. It took 100 stitches to close the wound. Then words began to appear on R's body, scratched in blood. One word, Louis, prompted the family to move back to their hometown, St. Louis, to seek help. There, priest began another exorcism at a Catholic hospital. Later in the show, find out how the second exorcism ended. Now it's time to take a fright quiz. True or false? The feeling of being spooked can be caused by magnetic fields. The answer is true, according to a study performed at the Edinburgh Vaults. Centuries ago, people lived and worked in the complex of underground vaults and passageways. Now it's considered one of the most haunted places on Earth. There, research subjects consistently rated certain chambers more spooky than others.
The haunted vaults have a rather unusual variation in their magnetic fields. People are walking in, and those fields are having a rather unusual effect on their bodies and maybe their brains, and that accounts for the experiences that they're having there.
True or false? Experiencing a big fright can be good for your health. The answer? True. When we're scared, our heart rates increase and our senses are heightened. Once we're out of danger, our bodies relax. In short, a good scare actually relieves stress. And of course, that's a good thing. True or false? The part of your brain that creates a fear response is the same part that controls sexual arousal. The answer? True. The amygdala handles both. It's an almond-shaped cluster of neurons in the medial temporal lobe of the brain. And that combination might explain why everyone loves a good scare. Has anyone been able to prove if ghosts exist or not? People have been claiming to catch spirits on film since the beginning of photography. This image, taken in 1936, is the famous Brown Lady Ghost, taken at 400-year-old Rainham Hall in Britain. In 1982, photographer Chris Brackley took a photograph of the interior of London's St. Bodolph's Church. Later, Chris realized he was not alone when he took the photo. While the authenticity of some of these photos is still debated, others are clearly in the hoax category. To the modern eye, the Cottingley Ferry photos taken in 1917 look pretty fake. But in their day, even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, author of the Sherlock Holmes stories, was convinced that they were real. The two young girls later admitted to cutting pictures of fairies out of a storybook, then sticking them into the ground with hat pins. Skeptics believe technology is to blame.
Only when glass plate negatives were developed, allowing double exposures, did spirits begin to appear. You can see this ghostly figure, and you can see the overlap. This is almost certainly a double exposure.
However, there are some photos that are harder to dismiss than others. Myrtle's Plantation in Louisiana is supposedly home to many spirits, but only one is believed to have been caught on camera.
We call it the Chloe picture. You can literally count the boards on the house through her body. When you look in that picture, it really will, it will just raise the hair on the back of your neck.
Chloe was a slave at the plantation in the 1800s. According to legend, she fatally poisoned members of her master's family after he cut her ear off for eavesdropping. She wore a green turban to hide the scar.
It just so resembles the uniform that she wore, the black garb with the turban on her head and the small feather coming out of the top of her turban.
Is it a ghost or just a shadow? In today's digital age, everyone has a camera in their back pocket, so it's easier than ever to snap creepy images, but also easier than ever to fake them. Later in the show, see what some claim is the greatest evidence ever caught on tape. Up next, the story of the only spirit ever credited with a real-life murder. There are ghosts. Then there are poltergeists. What's the difference? Well, paranormal specialists believe both exist. But they claim that poltergeists are much more aggressive and violent. Reports of poltergeist activity have been around for hundreds of years. In the early 1800s, John Bell moved his family to a farm in Adams, Tennessee. But their roomy log cabin already seemed occupied. The family started to hear strange sounds in the night. Daughter Betsy became a punching bag for a malevolent spirit soon known as the Bell Witch. In 1819, as word of the poltergeist spread, General Andrew Jackson paid the Bell farm a visit to see the ghost for himself. But after an encounter with the evil spirit, the future president fled, reportedly saying he'd rather face the wrath of the British Army. Eventually, John Bell died, poisoned, they said, by the Bell Witch.
John Bell has been referred to many times as the only man in history that's ever been killed by a spirit.
Perhaps the most famous poltergeist case unfolded in Enfield, North London in 1977. An alleged poltergeist terrorized an 11-year-old named Janet and her family. Cameras captured Janet being thrown into the air and furniture flying around the room. Skeptics claim she was jumping, but the photographer said his shutter speed was too fast for it to be a hoax.
She started off flat in bed. The next shot, the covers come away. Arms were flat by her side. There is no picture of her between flat and coming out of the bed. She's gone from that to that. She's literally flying in a sixth of a second.
So how do you tell if your own home is filled with spirits or just shenanigans? Usually, there are simple explanations. Nocturnal animals creating ghost-like noises, or bad window caulking leading to mysterious drafts. People are also spooked by something else that may seem unexplainable at first. It's called infrasound. Low-frequency sound waves that come from a variety of man-made and natural sources and are inaudible to humans. Subway trains are a possible source of infrasound, so is seismic activity. Believe it or not, infrasound has a range of bizarre effects on people, including anxiety and chills down the spine. What happens after we die? Heaven? Hell? Something else entirely? For many of the world's 1.3 billion Hindus and Buddhists, the answer is reincarnation. Reincarnation is the rebirth of the soul into another body after death. Is there any way to prove the existence of past lives? For two families in Sri Lanka, this little boy is all the proof they need. Shatura was only 3 years old when he started to speak of his memories of a previous life and his violent death as a soldier.
He said this was not his home. He constantly cried because he wanted to go to his real home. He said, "You are not my mother. My mother is lighter skinned and heavier than you." He used to cry all the time.
Past life memories are an accepted part of Sri Lankan culture, but few are able to match the memories to a specific person. Shatura's case was different. Shatura claimed that the birthmark on his neck was evidence of his former self being shot, and he vividly recalled a life with another set of parents in the village of Naramala.
If this hadn't happened, the family wouldn't have said it had. We had to persuade them to even put it in the newspaper. They didn't want this to be published.
The story caught the eye of MP Martin and his wife, who recognized their own son's story in Shatura's tale. The Martins are from Naramala, and their son, Dayananda, was fatally wounded in a military skirmish. Shatura had never met the Martins, but knew some surprising details about them. He knew Mr. Martin was a bricklayer and spoke of a small shop with a thatched roof that his father had built for him shortly before he died, of injuries to the head and neck. It was enough to convince Shatura's own mother.
He stared for a long time. Then he said, "Daddy," and his eyes filled with tears. We all cried too.
Coincidence? Wishful thinking? Or something else? Up next, do zombies really exist? According to this man, they do. Because he is one. And later, is this the greatest evidence of the supernatural caught on film?
Zombie. Yes. Zombie.
Do zombies really walk the earth? To many Haitians, zombies don't just appear in Michael Jackson videos. The living dead are a very real worry. In Haiti, they believe voodoo witch doctors can revive the dead to use as slaves.
Yes, I've seen zombies. I've seen someone who has died and come back to life.
Sound impossible? Not to this man. He could be living proof that zombies exist. Clairvius Narcisse was declared dead at this hospital in 1962. His bizarre case surfaced when he returned years later to seek medical treatment.
The physician states here, 61-year-old male who claims to be a zombie. He also has a hernia. Scientifically, I cannot explain it. All I can say is there are things in this world which are unexplained.
Think you had a strange day at the office? Well, Antoine Veillus, the undertaker who buried Clairvius, was shocked when he got a visit from his once-deceased customer.
When he came back, I saw that it was him. He showed me a scar where I had hit him with my hammer when I was nailing him into his coffin.
Narcisse claimed a witch doctor took him from his tomb, revived him, and then kept him in slavery for years. It sounds crazy until you learn some of a witch doctor's secrets. They know how to use chemical powers of the plants and animals surrounding them. One of the most toxic is the sea toad, a type of pufferfish which they dry roast and turn into powder.
If you're passing by, I can take the powder out of my pocket and blow it on you. You're poisoned by my weapon.
For those exposed to the poison, breathing can become so shallow they appear dead. But the toxin doesn't affect the brain, so victims are paralyzed but remain fully conscious. As long as they are able to breathe, there's a chance for recovery or revival. But too much toxin, and neither voodoo rituals nor modern medicine will save you. The business of the supernatural is booming. Ghost gizmos, scary movies, and harrowing haunts have millions of people reaching for their pocketbook. And you might be surprised at what some people have spent to get a piece of the supernatural. This ghost in a jar made headlines when it got a bid of $50,000 on eBay. And how about this one? The Virgin Mary grilled cheese. Supposedly, that's Mother Mary's image burned onto the bread. The miraculous recipe?
It's Publix bread, Land O'Lakes cheese.
Internet casino GoldenPalace.com threw down 28,000 big ones for this 10-year-old tasty treat and got some heavenly publicity in the process. Up next, what happened to the boy who inspired the real-life story of The Exorcist? Earlier in the show, we told you about R, the 12-year-old boy whose story inspired the film The Exorcist. R was tormented by violent demons which possessed him. When the words Louis were violently scratched in blood on his chest, it prompted the family to move back to their hometown, St. Louis, to seek help. Walter Halloran was a 27-year-old Jesuit scholar at St. Louis University when two priests called him to the psychiatric wing of the Alexian Brothers Hospital. That was the first time he met R and witnessed his deranged behavior.
He'd spit on you with amazing marksmanship. He'd hit you right in the face 5 feet away.
But the boy wasn't just thrashing and spitting. Father Halloran claims he saw bloody signs appear on R's body.
The mark appeared on his shoulder one time, and it looked like the caricatures of the devil. Horns. I could see his hands. He wasn't doing it.
The ordeal went on for weeks. A demonic voice came from R, claiming that the evil spirit would never leave.
The voice came and said that I will not leave until a certain word is said, but the child will never say it. I'll never say that word.
But on Easter Monday, another voice rang out through the boy, commanding Satan to leave his body, saying Dominus, the Latin word for Lord.
Dominus.
Witnesses heard the sound of a gunshot.
A loud report. And that was the time that the exorcism was over.
The priest believed that saying Dominus finally released R from the devil's hold. But was it a real case of possession or an extreme mental disorder?
If a person wants to be skeptical, let him be skeptical. All I know is that I was there and that I saw it.
Either way, the story of The Exorcist has become world famous. And it's not just an isolated case. The Catholic Church recently reconfirmed its belief in the existence of demons and the power of exorcism. In 1999, under Pope John Paul II, the Vatican revised its exorcism guidelines for the first time since 1614. And in late 2005, the Pontifical University in Rome offered a course to teach priests how to differentiate between demonic possession and other psychological or physical trauma. But demons aren't unique to Catholics. These are actual exorcism rituals performed in an Eastern Orthodox church in Russia. Mrs. Mamescu claims her breast cancer was caused by demons and cured by faith.
Doctors explained to me that I had an aggressive cancer. I was beating myself screaming, but that wasn't me. Those were demons. Now I know that demons and cancer have the same face.
Priests referred parishioners to doctors and psychologists for obvious physical and mental problems. But in some cases, they claim only exorcism will do the trick.
Are we against our own faith? You don't want God to do any miracles? So many people get healed, and not only the spiritually ill, but also the physically ill people.
Still not convinced? Well, maybe these images will make a supernatural believer out of you. Many people feel this is proof of a ghost caught on tape. The image appeared on the closed-circuit security system at England's Hampton Court Palace. The castle was home to Henry VIII and his 6 wives, 2 of whom lost their heads. 3 days in a row in 2003, alarms alerted palace guards to an open fire door. When the guards investigated, they saw no one. But when they checked the security tapes, they were stunned to see a hooded figure standing in the doorway. Though the palace has never officially stated that they have a ghost on their hands, they haven't been able to explain the image either. And that's the way it is with the supernatural. Some things can't be easily explained, so you have to decide for yourself. And now, you're in the know.